Hey, everybody, it's Joe Solari, and this is the Business of Writing, where we help authors build great publishing businesses. We're welcoming back Evan Gao from Story Origin. This is what at least your third time on here, I think.
I think my third time on, yeah.
Well, I love
hope your
having you
audience
on.
isn't getting too bored of me.
Well, here's the thing is like, why do we have people come back on is because you are constantly updating your product and creating new cool stuff that people need to know about. And if we can help to get some authors up that learning curve a little bit faster, like, then our job here is done. So like that's what we're going to talk about today is some pretty interesting stuff that you've shown me that you're doing to make maybe one of the most important things an author can do a lot easier and more effective. So why don't you start out just telling us a little bit about you and the company, and then, I mean, this is going to quickly roll into, I guess, a product demo of like, here's how the new stuff works. But like, at least for anybody that's new to meeting you, who are you? What does your product do?
Yeah, so if you're not familiar with me, my name is Evan. I'm the founder of Story Origin, which is a marketing tool and a community of authors working together to build your mailing lists, increase your sales, and help you find more reviewers. And most recently now, what we'll talk about today is helping you collect feedback from beta readers and find beta readers, because it's an incredibly important part of the process as an author. And the way that most authors do it now, it is a huge pain, both between like the management, timing, just the whole process can really become a drudge for a lot of authors. So Story Origin, I'm rolling out a new feature to help streamline all of that.
Now, that's great. And I think that, from what I've seen from clients and people that are doing this, while there is some stuff to kind of help herd cats, it is always going to be kind of a cat herding process. So anything that can make it move a little bit smoother is going to be a huge help to product quality. And I think the other thing too is forgetting about having a good beta reader is such a precious resource. Anything you can do to make their experience easier is going to get them to be pushing your books up their list to beta read. I mean, some of these guys,
right.
It's like a full-time job, right?
Yeah for sure. Yeah, and I mean, for a lot of authors, they're wondering, I've got this mailing list of people. You might build your mailing list through Story Origin, or you've just organically grown your mailing list. How can I actually utilize that mailing list that I've built, other than to just like say, hey, here's my new release, like go buy it? One of the really valuable things that you can do with that mailing list is to find people who are going to be your champions, who might be beta readers for you. So yeah, I think it's part of the process that could definitely use a lot of others could use some help there.
Sure. So why don't we just kind of dive into it? People don't want to listen to us yammer on. Like, go right into kind of showing what we're talking about here, because I think it'll make the conversation easier for everybody.
Yeah, let's jump right in. So I'm here on my author dashboard. I've already gone ahead and gone to the beta copies tab on Story Origin. And here you can find, you can find a description of what the feature is, just in case, if you're not taking notes, it's always easy to go to the little description box, hit the video tutorial, or go to the guide about it on Story Origin. I'm going to just jump right into going ahead and creating a beta copy. I'm going to actually go ahead and make one real quick here. Oops, I did that poorly. I've got a little blurb here. We'll use Great Gatsby just to show how easy this is. I'll add some tags, add a chapter, say how many books have you read in this genre. I'm going to set a default reader access date, expiration date for readers. And I'll just leave the critique guidance blank for now. Hit add. I'm going to go ahead and bulk upload my document. So I've already got my manuscript. I'm just going to select my docx file here, upload it, and then I'll scroll to the bottom here and hit create. that will automatically upload all of my chapters. And so now all of my content is loaded into StoryOrigin, ready to go. I'll go back over to my beta copies tab. So this is the one that we just created here. And then this is what it looks like from the reader's perspective. So once you upload that beta copy, you get that landing page. You can get your share link there. And then this is the link that you can send out to your newsletter. You can share it in Facebook groups or subreddits or just across social media, wherever you want to try and find beta readers. And StoryOrigin can help you collect those requests. So a reader can hit request review copy. Oh, this is not the one that I just created. That was the one that let's see. This is the one I just created. So we'll go ahead and do this here. They would hit request review copy. They would see, here's the application message. How many books have you read in this genre? Let's say I said 20 books, and they understand it's beta copy. They're going to read through and leave feedback. They'd hit request, and then they would go to their reviewer dashboard. So this is I'm going to go ahead and actually now delete, just because I just wanted to show what the application process looks like from the reader side. So this Great Gatsby one, we've already gotten a reader, right? This is already approved. This was one I had gone through before. So we've got this reader here, and they can go to their reviewer dashboard, go to any chapter. Let's say we're just reading chapter 1. They can leave comments, highlights, say this is a comment. Oh, spelling terribly, live streaming. It's fine. They can go back to the table of contents, and you see that as they go through the book, they unlock chapters by leaving feedback on the previous chapter. And yeah, so at the end of each chapter, they can leave those inline comments as they're going through it. But at the end of each chapter, they can also go ahead and leave end of chapter feedback. So they would submit, what they thought of the chapter, how eager they are to read the next one, and then they would leave their overall feedback, and then they could go on to the next chapter. And we can see here, actually, we've got a questionnaire embedded. So after they've read through the first 4 chapters, they'd have to respond to this questionnaire I inserted, and then they could go on to chapter 5.
So in this whole process, one thing you kind of built in is that they can't just read the book.
Right.
This isn't like some people might come into this and they're like, oh, well, I'm not into doing all this work. That's actually a good thing to figure out early on, that this isn't really a beta reader. This is somebody that's just looking to get free fiction.
Right. Yeah. So, if you've just been sending out manuscripts to beta readers, just like sending them a Word file or sending them a link to a Google Doc, you don't really have any control over if they just go ahead and read the whole book. And then they say, oh, yeah, it was great. And you go, well, that's not, I'm looking for a little bit more feedback than just that was great, right? Mm-hmm. So by having that process where they leave feedback on each individual chapter, you really are going to get much more detailed comments back about, what they thought of the characters or setting or arcs that are going on.
Cool. So one of the things that just came to my mind when I look at this is, like, if I'm an early author, I'm trying to build my community and specifically a good beta reading team, right? Like if I can get 10 people that are really committed that read this genre and you're committed to me, that's a powerful asset. I'm seeing that there's an opportunity here to kind of train their behavior by saying, like, I could gamify this, like, hey, I'm gonna give you a gift card for the first person that's done with this book, or I'm going to give an award for person who has the most comments, stuff like that can elicit the right behavior, because now I can at least see that behavior.
Right. Yeah. You could certainly gamify it. That would, providing incentives to readers to do a good job and to go through it quickly is something that is really valuable. If you're just giving beta readers out or giving beta copies out to readers and asking for their feedback for free, that's a big time commitment for a lot of readers. And even something as simple as, hey, if you beta read for me, I'm going to include you in the acknowledgments of my book, and like you're going to be your name's going to be published in a book, like me acknowledging you. Like even something as simple as that, I would, I as a reader would be absolutely thrilled if I could be in the acknowledged section of some of my favorite authors. Rewarding to me.
You just made me like, hey, by the way, how I'm going to list the acknowledgments in this is those that complete this thing and in the order that they complete the work.
Yeah.
Right. And you'd have to set some criteria, right? You don't want the guy just to go through it real quick and slam in, crappy comments. But
yeah,
there's just from the little bit you've shown me already, I can see how you could make this fun and exciting and different for those that are interested in doing beta read.
Yeah. Yeah. And one thing we haven't mentioned here, but one thing that is important about this is that when readers are leaving their feedback on your beta copy on Story Origin, they can only see their comments and feedback. So they can't see other beta readers' feedback or comments, right? This is one of the things where, like, if you as an author, you're doing this without Story Origin, you're just sending out like Word files or links to Google Docs, you need to have every reader have their own separate file, which makes it really difficult to collate the feedback from the author or from the readers, because all of those comments and responses are living in their own separate document. With Story Origin, readers leave their feedback and can only see their own feedback, but you as the author can see everyone's feedback. So it's really simplifies a huge portion of that process, which is like trying to make sure that your readers are leaving you unbiased feedback, because if they could see each other's comments and feedback, then they're going to be biased by what they see from other readers.
Yeah, for sure. I didn't mean to interrupt. You want to keep moving along here, and there's a lot of features here you want to show.
Let's jump back into it. So here's this reader. I can see how far into the book they've progressed. So I can keep track of how far each reader is in progressing through my beta copy. So if I want to email one and say, hey, just a reminder, like I'm looking for feedback back by such and such date, they will have that on hand. The other thing is, with Story Origin, you have complete control over who has access to your beta copy and how long they have access for. So we saw that page where a reader can apply for access, and then you as an author can individually approve or decline access for applicants. So only people that you approve can actually read the beta copy. And then once they get access to the beta copy, you can also turn off their access at any time. So if I wanted to disable, this reader's access, I would just hit disable access, and then they can't read the book. And then this is the date and the time that their access expired. I can also re-enable it. If I re-enable it, there's no access expiration date. They can just read it for however long they want. But I could also go back and I could set a new access expiration date. So I'll just set it back to November 1st again. This is also like a good way to incentivize your readers to complete it by a certain date, because when they're over here on their reviewer profile or on their beta copies dashboard, they see when their access expires. So they know, oh, okay, I've got to read this by such and such date. Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to keep reading the book. So having a hard deadline for them can be very valuable for you as an author. But again, like if you need to, you can always on a per reader basis set different access expiration dates. So if someone says, oh, hey, I got sick or such and such happened, I need like a couple more days, so you could go and you could give them that couple more days just individually. So yeah, that is that side of it. Going to actually looking at the feedback from the beta readers. So when we go to our responses section, I'll also go here from my beta copies dashboard. So from my beta copies dashboard, the other way to go here is just to click the view under the responses column. You can look at the feedback. You have lots of filtering mechanisms. So you can't do this when you've got like feedback across 10 different documents or 20 different documents. But with Story, since you've got all in one place, you can look at feedback just on like, here's section 1 version 1, here's just the feedback on that. If I want to see feedback from all my 10 or 20 beta readers just on section 1 version 1, I could look at just that. Or if I want to look at a single reader's feedback across every chapter, I could also sort by just filter down to a specific reader. And then if I want to filter by like specific feedback on specific things, like maybe I want to look at what's feedback on the characters, I can search for that keyword, and here's all the feedback that mention characters. So you don't really get that kind of thing when you're just like, it's all siloed. And then you also can set different statuses. So initially all of your feedback is going to be unread, but you can mark it as, read and consider, or still considering, or this is a to-do if this is something I know I want to make a change in my manuscript for, or just like mark it as resolved. So you could go through, you could read all your unread comments, right? What we could do is we could go through our unread comments, mark them as either to-dos or not. And then once we've got all of our feedback that we've marked as to-dos, we could filter by all our to-dos, and then we could just go through, each chapter, each version, and get that feedback incorporated into our manuscript.
Cool. Now I see there's this upvote and downvote. What does that do for the comments?
So this upvote and downvote, if you really like feedback from a beta reader, you could upvote it, and then that's displayed on their beta reader profile. So when a reader applies for access to your beta copy, you can see when they apply, you can see the number of words that they've left as critiques against the number of words that they are critiquing. So you can see like a ratio of like, what, does this person give really in-depth critiques or not? And then you can also see the ratio of the number of responses that they've had that were upvoted versus downvoted. So if a reader leaves really great feedback for you, like give them an upvote. And then when other authors are seeing that they applied for their beta copies, or when you're looking at beta readers that are coming to you that have gotten upvotes, you can see, oh, okay, this person has gotten a lot of upvotes. They must leave really good feedback. Alternatively, like if they don't leave constructive criticism and it's just sort of harsh without any real actionable items, you could just downvote their comments that you or other authors can see, like this beta reader's applications when they're trying to get authorized for those copies. Like, is this someone that I actually want to approve for a copy?
And I think that's one of the great features that you've built into previous things like the reviewer piece, where there's this doesn't happen instantaneously, but over time there becomes this social proof as to who are the good and who are the bad reviewers or beta readers that you're going to want to work with. And it helps, I think, get some good behavior out of the community on both sides, right? Because there is that transparency.
Yeah. So that transparency is definitely really valuable both for authors and readers, right? And that's the sort of thing when you're doing this by yourself, you're not going to be able to know when someone's like applying for a review copy, or if you're arranging newsletter swaps, or you're doing group promos. If you're doing this all like through your own website or through, Google Forms or something like that, you don't really have that community knowledge, right? So Story Origin has that sort of, when you're doing stuff on Story Origin, you're not just bringing your own personal experiences, you're bringing, the wealth of knowledge that has been built up by the community as a whole in having access to all the statistics and things.
Cool. All right. So now they've gone through our thing. We've got some comments. We've maybe had, like you said, there's these questionnaires that you can put in there. To give me an example of where you're seeing authors use those questionnaires.
So those questionnaires are really valuable. Like if you, let's say, we'll go here to my contents and comments, right? What I can do is I can insert a questionnaire. What I would do is just hit this add questionnaire button, put in whatever I want, and then slot it in. like here I've slotted in after chapter 4. And so I can, a reader can leave feedback on just like, here's what I thought of chapter 1, here's what I thought of chapter 2, here's what I thought of chapter 3. By having those questionnaires embedded between chapters allows me to get a longer view of, okay, what did you think of sort of act 1 as a whole? Was there any sort of, let's say I want to, what I'm really trying to do in chapters 1 through 4 is really develop this character senses in a certain way. I can ask for specific feedback, like, did you see that happening as a reader? Was I being too subtle about it? Because a lot of times I think as an author, you understand all of your characters' motivations because you're writing this story, right? And you've thought about all of this a ton, right? And you're like, okay, I'm gonna include this line here, and it's gonna sort of evoke this certain perception by the reader that this is changing, or here's what's happening. And then like it goes over every reader's head, and you don't even realize it that you're trying to do this thing and readers aren't necessarily picking up on it. And so making sure that you're getting your point across, because it's really easy to be too subtle sometimes. So stuff like that is where having those questionnaires around what's happening over sort of the longer term parts of the story can be incredibly valuable. But, a reader has to answer the questionnaires the same way as like they have to go and leave feedback on each chapter to read the next one. So it's a really valuable way to, you could do this for, other sort of gamification purposes, or collecting other info just sort of throughout the book, right? As like things that they would have to answer in order to keep reading through the rest of it.
Yeah. No, I think that's really cool how that's set up. So what else should authors know about this? I mean, we've kind of gone through the mechanics of getting it set up, but have you gotten some guidance for authors that are going to start adopting this tool, like how they can get the most out of it, or things that you've heard from your existing customers that the community should know about?
Yeah, I mean, definitely the feedback from the community has been really good so far with this feature. You're getting a lot of, it's still certainly early days, but like, one author, they did 2 separate newsletters, one both asking for beta readers, right? One was hey, I'm looking for beta readers for this new book I have coming out, like who wants to come and read it? And then the other email that they did to their subscribers was a funny and self-deprecating sort of like, I'm I'm I I'm doing really poorly here. Need feedback and whatever. And it was very funny. There's like a lot of alliteration. I can't even I can't even do it justice. But yeah, like that version of the ask got more people requesting access to the beta copy. So that's one thing, is like also play with your messaging around like how you might request or how you might put this out there that people can request access to your beta copies, right? Because the way that you message it could certainly increase the number of people that are going to apply for it. And you want to get feedback from a decent amount of beta readers, right? Because if you just get feedback from one beta reader, you don't know, it's very small sample size, right? Whether or not that person is just, that's just like their opinion, which is totally different from maybe the vast majority of people. So, I would shoot, you probably want to have like at least sort of 3, 4, 5 beta readers. Some authors have, like 70 plus or 100 plus beta readers. At that point, you might be getting too much feedback to the point that it's hard to coalesce that into actionable sort of ways of changing your manuscript and revising it. But definitely you want more than just like, 1 or 2 people. The other thing to mention is a lot of authors don't even really get feedback on revisions of their manuscript, or if they get feedback on revisions of their manuscript, they're basically, you've got the new manuscript and then you have to send it to a totally new set of beta readers, because it's really difficult to get feedback from the same set of beta readers on an entire document when only like small portions of it changed. With Story Origin, you can upload revisions of each chapter individually. And then, so like on the reader's side, when they go to the table of contents, they can see what the latest version is that has been uploaded. So if I, as an author, I upload a new version 2 of chapter 1, they would see like a red X here instead of a green check mark. And then they would know, oh, okay, I can go back and read chapter 1 and see like how they incorporated my feedback and comments and stuff, and whether or not I like this chapter more.
Very interesting.
Yeah, because you can't, like, when you're doing this through just like Google Docs or just like sending out Word files or something to people, getting feedback on those revisions like extremely complicates the process around like how you're handling your files and stuff. So StoryOrigin makes that really, really simple. If you're just like, okay, I just upload a revision, and then readers can see that new version of just that chapter.
That's really interesting, Evan, because there's two. I think for anybody that's doesn't have like a built up beta team, understanding this isn't something that you just go get a beta team and then you want another beta team. This is an asset you're building for your business, right? You want to get a good group. And like you said, you don't want one and you don't want 100. You want a solid group of people that all bring different qualities to the review, right? Some people may be reviewing purely on a grammatical level. They're kind of being a pass on fixing that kind of stuff. Others are going to be focused on how things work, like they're experts in how weapons work. Or I know for a lot of folks that write historical fiction, they have a team that's really what they want them to come back with, is like to hit on the, did I miss something with the history piece? Because that'll knock a reader out of the story really quickly. Building that team over time, like one, it sucks because it takes time, right? Like you have to keep doing this, but to have it that you build this process that they understand, right? And that you start to think through like, okay, this isn't just a one pass deal. Like that's very interesting what you've got built there, in the sense of, okay, if you make sure that they start to understand that what's going to happen is in that window, we need to get this stuff read, then I'm going to get revisions and you get another shot to see what's going on. And I think that helps to make sure that the end product is good. But then from the perspective of the team, right? Like when somebody sees that you're responding to their commentary and adding to it, they take ownership, right? Like they're going to be even more invested in this process.
Yeah, for sure. That's for sure. And one thing to mention here is like StoryOrigin also automatically sends updates to your beta readers whenever you've uploaded new content, whether you're uploading a new chapter or you're uploading a new version of a chapter that's already existing. So you don't even need to go and like tell everyone that, hey, you just uploaded 3 more chapters. Like StoryOrigin just handles that for you to help you streamline your process. And again, like this is really difficult to do for a lot of authors for even just a small set of words. But then I was talking with Chris Fox the other day actually about StoryOrigin's new feature, and he was saying he does 120 pages per week that need to be beta read, and he basically is not doing he doesn't think he's doing as good of a job as he thinks he should be, because it is such a headache to actually manage the process, right? Like he knows and wants to get feedback and really manage it, but it's so time consuming. And so when I was telling him about this new feature, he's really excited to try it out, especially given the number of words that he's pumping out. Like it becomes so there's so much overhead to it, right? So
absolutely. Yeah. You start to think about this from that perspective. Two things on that. There's one is, and you've kind of touched on this before, is that the process gets so unwieldy, right? Like now I've got to pull together 20 Google Docs and read through, and a lot of those things are going to be common comments, and it just gets hard. And how do I bring that all in to a space where I can use that to be valuable information? And that's just on one book. Now you look to somebody that's writing faster or writing multiple series, and even if, let's say they've got 3 series they're writing over a period of time, they can't even remember like what was going on in that book, right? So like to have some process that makes it smoother and then just reduces the time, right? This gets you back a lot of just, physical labor of wrestling this stuff to the ground that is just there, like to essentially to manually filter this so you can comprehend what you're being told.
Yeah. Giving time back to writers to focus on writing is actually, what it's really all about. And again, like going back to what you were saying about developing a team that really feels invested and like having a process that they know how to work with and they can do it on a consistent basis. Like, especially when you're pumping out a lot of words, like having that process for your readers is really important too, to make it easy for them. So yeah, there was one other thing that I did want to touch on real quick too, which is when you're getting your responses back from your beta readers, one thing is when they leave responses to your chapters, they give you a rating for the chapter, but they also have to answer how eager they are to read the next chapter. And so you get an anticipation rating from your readers. And Story Origin, if you've got a 3 or 4 or 5, just leaves it gray. But if you've got a rating that's a 2, then it will be marked in yellow. If you've got a rating that's a 1, that'll be marked in red. And so I can really clearly see like, okay, like here I'm getting, 3, 4, 5 on all, chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. And then I see, okay, when I go and I filter to, let's say, chapter 3, version 3, or let's see what chapter it's. So it's section 2, version 1, right? Like, let's say I see feedback from all of my readers, like, oh, the rating on this chapter, I'm getting like 1s or 2s. And my anticipation rating is like, oh, like a 1 or a 2. People don't want to continue the story from here. Like, I might have a bad chapter, but if people aren't eager to read the next chapter, that means I really need to focus on what is my hook in this chapter.
Yeah.
Right? Because with each chapter, you really got to be thinking about, okay, how am I hooking them into wanting to turn the page to go to the next chapter? Because it can be easy to just lose people. And when you're sending out beta copies, if you lose people partway through the process and you don't ever get feedback from them, you don't know where it is you lost them in the process. Did they never even open your file? Did they open it and they read the first, chapter or 2 or 3 and then you lost them there? Mm-hmm. Like, what point are you losing your readers? And so if I can see, okay, they're not really eager to read chapter 4 and I didn't get any feedback on them from chapter 4, this is where I lost them in the process. And it's because like, oh, their anticipation, like they're not really eager to read it. And that's probably because, I'm losing them in that hook to keep reading.
Absolutely. I think that, when you're thinking about that whole experience that you're trying to create in a book, and, we all love it when we get a book that's so good that we just can't put it down, but that takes time to figure out. And in this part of the process, if you can get that feedback and understand, even if it's like, I don't know, it just doesn't work, right? Like that's kind of, you get as a comment, like, I don't know what it, but like the fact that you saw that, 6 out of 10 people, that's where they drop off. Now, at least you know where to go look and be like, okay, what am I missing here? What is it that, like, this is the chapter that's killed the book.
Right. Yeah. And a reader may not be really good at necessarily explaining why it is that they lost interest. Right. Everyone has to some degree trouble explaining what that is that they really like love about any particular thing necessarily. And so, yeah, you might not see specific feedback that it's like, oh, it's this character's specific part here where they're really not actually, following up on whatever their dream or their goal is that they said in chapter 1. It's like an inversion of how, some complicated thing. They might just go like, I don't like what this character did. And so yeah, like just being able to see at least on that sort of overall basis. Yeah, you're totally right. Just being able to say, okay, there's something, this is where it went wrong. At least I can identify that. And then what part of is it that
Right,
I really
right.
need to focus on?
Yeah. I mean, that becomes, if you know that, first off, that nobody can even get through to the back 2/3 of your book, like that's going to be an issue. And now you know what the issue is, you can fix it, or you can try to fix it. And then you, with the way this tool works, what's great is you can then go back and get some, did that, like, does this work better now? Right. Like,
Right.
that's the other thing, is if you're using this as an iterative tool. Now that gets back to what we were talking about before, is over time, you're going to have to train your team to engage in that process, that it isn't just going to be review my book and go off and disappear. Like, you want a team that is invested in this, and that, however you decide to gamify this for them, so that they do keep engagement, that's going to help so much, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
cool.
And especially with like I think one thing that's interesting is also like the development of sort of serial reading too, right? There's a lot of new alternative ways for readers to start stories and learn about new authors. And you know like serial fiction is certainly growing. You could even pair something like this with your serial fiction. So you might be uploading chapters. You don't have to have the book completed when you upload it as a beta copy to StoryOrigin. You might just have the first 3 chapters ready to go. And then you might be releasing new chapters on a weekly basis. And that might be a
Yeah,
week or 2 ahead of when you're releasing it across any serial fiction apps or anything, right? And so you're being able to get feedback before you put those out there. You're able to get feedback from like at least a few core readers about your chapters, because it's really difficult to get feedback and manage like any sort of real editing process when you're talking about doing serial fiction, unless you
sure.
write the whole book beforehand and then you're you know just posting the book that you already wrote. And already, if you
Mhm.
want to have like a sort of a just in time process, right? Like if you're talking about manufacturing, yeah, to this would be like sort of streamlining the process to the max.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point, Evan, as far as with whether you're doing like a Vela or a Royal Road or any of these other serialized things where you need to have some feedback. This would be a great tool, and you could get people where they understand how they're working. Like, this isn't like a traditional book review where, like, hey, we're going to go through this process, we're going to be done, and it's over. It's like, in this particular case, this is going to be an ongoing thing, and you're a couple weeks ahead of everybody else, or a couple months ahead, whatever it might be, but that they are helping you to really craft this and punch up all these points that you need with, because that's one of these things where you need to have cliffhangers and longer
Right.
arcs, and there's
Yep.
some real serious mechanics to making serialized fiction compelling.
Yep. Yeah, again, going back to the like, how eager are they to read the next chapter? How well do you have that hook? Um, yeah, incredibly important within serialized fiction.
Cool, cool. So what else should they know about this particular tool, Story Origin?
One other thing, so we talked about seeing the feedback on overall chapters. I think one thing that we missed is just being able to view like the inline comments that you get from authors or
Mm,
from readers. Sorry, so you can see, you can go to your chapter, chapter 1 version 1, and I can look at, okay, here's the text that they highlighted, here's the comments. So this would show me the comments I've received from all of my readers. But if I want to just look at comments from our particular reader, or if I've got my to-dos here, I can say, okay, now I've gone through, marked all of my unreads as either to-dos, or I've just considered it but I'm not going to do it. I've got all my to-dos here. Now I'm just going to go through them and actually update my manuscript. Yeah, so this is another really sort of key part of the ingredient, sort of like track changes or leaving comments in Google Docs,
mm,
right? So it works there too for you.
cool.
I think that pretty much covers everything thing that I think to mention with this feature is on the standard plan on Story Origin. So there's there's a free tier on Story Origin, which gives you some basic features. And there's the standard plan on Story Origin, which gives you all the advanced features. And so this is one of those advanced features that you would need to be on the standard plan for.
And what's that standard plan running now? I know that, for a long time you were doing everything as a free beta, and now we're past that. It's a commercialized product.
Yeah. So it is $10 per month or $100 per year, which when you consider, everything else that you get with being able to build your mailing list with reader magnets and the universal book links and review copies and this new feature with beta readers and newsletter swaps and group promos. Yeah, I mean, the return on investment, I think, is extremely high with Story Origin.
Well, and we don't want to turn this into going through all the features, but just for anyone that isn't familiar with it, besides this thing we were just covering today, one of the biggest things is if you're an early author, one of the things you did in that early beta process was you built up a very strong community of people to do newsletter swaps and promotions on this platform. And, that's kind of the other piece of this puzzle, right? Is like, if you're an author that's like, oh, well, I don't even have a list to send this to. Well, that's where you need to use the other part where you start to build your list, right? And then you can start to segment people out of that list to be folks that will be part of this.
Right. Yeah, for sure. So yeah, with Story Origin, you can, you might have been saying, Evan, I don't have a list at all. Or, I have 0 subscribers. Like, can I do cross promotions if I have 0 subscribers? Yes, absolutely you can. Join Story Origin. You've got no mailing list, no subscribers. Join Story Origin, join group promotions, put out a reader magnet, which is usually like a prequel short story that you give away that's like a prequel to your book one or your series. Use that and do cross promotions with other authors, because so many authors on Story Origin were in your shoes, probably just a couple of months ago, they had 0 subscribers. I was just talking to an author the other day. He was saying, yeah, when I started on Story Origin, 0 subscribers, joined it a few months later. Now I've got over 600. Now I'm running my own group promos, right? And when authors apply to my group promos that have 0 subscribers on their list, yeah, I accept those people because I was just in their shoes just a couple of months ago, right? Like, I understand the pain and the of like, okay, just starting out. So yeah, definitely like hop on. So many authors in the community are so nice, so helpful. It's really amazing. Like, I'm so glad I get to work on a piece of the internet where like people are just helping each other. I feel like so much of the internet is not that. But like Story Origin's this little corner where it's like, hey, people are like really helping each other here. Yeah. So, build your mailing list. You can start from scratch, and then those people that join, like they're people that are interested in your work, right? And get those people to become beta readers for you, because it's really easy to just send that link out and ask like, hey, who wants a beta read, my book one, if you've been using your prequel as your reader magnet.
Well, and I've been seeing, some more notable authors, folks that are doing really well, that are still active in promotions, right? Like that's just part of how they're continuing to build their audiences. They participate in a certain amount of promotions with some reader magnets that they've developed, and they're probably a little more judicious in deciding how they move people from that promotion into their regular mailing list, because of they understand where the source is, but they can see the data that that is a regular way of people finding new authors. And I know, we just did the Keystone Reader Survey where we did this. We had a couple thousand readers that we surveyed, And newsletter promotions is still one of the most significant ways for new author discovery, right? Like
Yeah.
it's in the top 3 more so than advertising. Like that's what people have to understand is that as far as an effective tool for you to be discovered, it is, if it's not number 1, it's in the top 3 for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just having a mailing list is so important. It just gives you that point of contact, direct contact with your readers that you do not get if you're just running ads, right? Like
Mhm.
you can, you can run ads all day long and drive sales, but then when you've got a new release, you have to go back to the well to try to try and advertise that new release. When you've got a mailing list, you just have that direct point of contact to say, hey, like you loved book 1 or whatever, like here's book 2 is out now, right? So yeah, and having those cross promotions is super valuable, not only as a way to build your mailing list, but as content for your newsletters, right? Because what a lot of readers love is being able to find recommendations for new books from authors, right? So if I, as an author, if I'm joining cross promotions and I'm promoting those other authors, I become a source of recommendations to my readers for other authors that they might like.
Mhm.
And then that's getting them to open my emails because they want to see what new books I'm recommending or what new books I'm just saying, hey, here's something that might interest you. It's also in my same genre. It doesn't necessarily need to be a recommendation, but just like a, hey, here's something interesting that I ran across. Like, here's, you might want to check it out too. Yeah, super valuable because that gets your readers to open your emails and click on them. That's
For
what you really want when you have a new release. If readers are not, if they're not opening your emails because you're not giving them stuff that's going to interest them, then they're not going to open that email where you have your new release. So if you're making deals and promotions a regular part of your newsletter, you're always giving readers a reason to open and click.
For sure. And I think the other part that gets lost a lot of times in this is that, and you touched on a little bit with people, making sure that they include those folks that start at 0 because they remember what it was like. There's also these cohorts that develop, right? Where it's like all of us are kind of starting out at the same time, trying this in this genre. And naturally there's going to be some of us that succeed and others that don't, but those of us that succeed and we're doing it helping each other, we develop a relationship that will be a lifelong relationship, right? So that we will now always have access to this small group of people as we more and more successful, right? So that's a time investment thing, right? It's like the old days of, like at talent agencies, everybody started in the mailroom, right? And you have to
Right.
work your way up. And it's like you remember the guys that you were in the mailroom with, and now that experience is something you are able to go back on when you're now all working at different movie studios because it's been 25 years since the mailroom.
Right.
But if you don't do that, you never get that bond. And I think that that's, again, this community piece on the author side that's also as important as that customer experience. Is like, this is a place for you to hook up with other authors in your genre that are trying to do the same thing as you. And if you help each other, then you have a higher chance of success.
Yeah. Being an author can certainly be a very lonely journey, but it does not need to be, right? So yeah, having those other people who are in your same genre too, like you might go to a local writers meetup, right? And you've got someone there that's writing science fiction, you've got someone there that's writing romance, you've got someone writing fantasy. You guys may not connect on a deeper level of interests there. But when you're organizing cross promotions, those are usually like really specific to like a genre and even a subgenre. Like maybe it's not just romance, but it's clean romance that I'm connecting with other
Mm,
authors on, right?
yeah.
And then you build these connections and bonds with these other authors that are really in your genre. And you guys might even do like they might be your critique partners too. So you might send them the link to your beta copy on Story Origin and have them give you feedback on your new release on your manuscript. And then you might, do the same for one of their beta copies on Story Origin. So yeah, it's building those bonds with other authors definitely valuable, and Story Origin helps with that too.
Cool. Awesome. So where can people find Story Origin and learn more about the product and all that good stuff?
Yeah, so people can find it at storyoriginApp.com. And if anyone has any questions, can certainly just go to the homepage on Story Origin. If you just scroll down to the bottom of the page, you will find my email address right there. Or if you hit the contact page, you can find my email address there as well. My inbox is open. Always happy to answer people's questions. Definitely do not feel afraid to reach out. So yeah, always happy to answer people's questions.
And there's a pretty big Story Origin community of authors on Facebook as well, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, there's the Story Origin Authors Facebook group, which is a great way for authors on Story Origin connect with one another a little bit more closely, and then also, just find ways to work together. And I will usually do like new announcements in the Facebook group, like as the first thing I do whenever I release something new. So it's like a good way to get an early, like, first peek, be the first one to know about whatever new it is that I've released.
All right, man. Well, it's been great having you on again, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks in Las Vegas.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Thanks again for having me on.
All right, Evan, take care.
Bye.
Bye.